Hello everyone, it's me again, and I've been wanting to make this video after I saw Superman. So what movie is this? Well, it's what if Super what if Dreamworks made a Superman movie? Sorry, my videos are unscripted. Please forgive me. I'm sure you will. So, after Superman Returns, Warner Brothers would somehow lose the rights to Superman, and DreamWorks would buy the rights to Superman to make their own movie. Releasing in 2010 would be Superman. Now, as for who I could have seen play Superman, I would say Henry Cavill could have still played Superman. Amy Adams possibly could have still played Lois Lane, even though I wish it was Jessica Biel and not Lois Lane in the DCU, but oh well. Whoever played Jimmy Olsen in Batman v Superman, I forget who he is. I think he still could have played Jimmy Olsen. But I guess Jay Baruchel could have been a good choice. As for Lana Lane, I would say Bryce Dallas Howard. As for who's the other guy? Oh yeah, Superman's jock. I forgot his name, but he was in Superman the Animated Series. He would appear in. I think Joe Manganiello would have been good, since he reminds me a lot of Flash Thompson. We would not see John Kent in this movie. He would be dead. But John Kent would appear in flashbacks, and Kevin Costner could have still played him. But the actress who played Martha Kent in the DCU would have still played Martha. This would not be an origin story. Instead, Clark would have been starring out as Superman. This would be like his first adventure. As for the villains would be Lex Luthor, played by Billy Zane, not Jesse Eisenberg. Ultra Humanite, who I could see being played by Brian Cox. He'd be more of a secondary antagonist, though. Essentially, Lex would be summoning criminals like Metallo, played by James Spader, and Parasite, played by Tim Blake Nelson after Superman. And Superman questions, who could be doing this? At first, you would assume it's Ultra Humanite, who, of course, would kidnap Lois Lane, but then it turns out it's Lex Luthor. And essentially, the final battle between Superman and Lex would be Superman find Lex in his armored suit from the comics. And in the end, Lex Luthor would be defeated. Other side characters would be Sam Lane, who I could see being played by William Hurt. As for who's the other one? Oh yeah, Perry White. He would be in this movie, and Lawrence Fishburne could have still played him. Then in 2014, we'd have Superman 2. In between films, there would be a Superman show taking place in between with Bizarro and Atomic Skull introduces some of the villains. But I'm talking mainly about the movies. In Superman 2, Clark faces his greatest challenge yet. He's doing well as Superman, and his relationship with Lois Lane is good. However, he is starting to cut contact with Lana because, they're starting to grow apart. As for the villain, this would be Brainiac, who I could see being played by Jude Law, who would send out some Brainiac bots to free Lex Luthor so he can help him with his plan. Atomic Skull and Ultra Humanite would also be released. One of the new villains would be Bloodsport, who I think could have still been played by Idris Elba. And he would be like the opening antagonist before Saran puts him away. After Saran hears the news of Atomic Skull being freed, he tries to fight Atomic Skull, but he's losing. But then someone comes in, and Clark has seen the shadow in the past up in the sky, but this girl, who almost has the same abilities as him, manages to defeat Atomic Skull. And from the dust, this would turn out to be Kara Zor-El, Supergirl, who possibly could have still been played by Sasha Calle, or maybe someone else. Like, I could have pictured someone like Chloe Grace Moretz as Supergirl, or maybe Melissa Benoist could have still played her. Likely the latter. And of course, we would learn more. We would see Superman's backstory and how Supergirl was not raised on Earth like he was. Essentially, Brainiac wanted his hands on her, but because, somehow Supergirl managed to find a place like Mars or maybe another part of Earth, and she was not raised by, the Kents, but was raised by the Danvers family. And she never met Clark, and so she didn't know that they were related until she was old, when she left the Danvers family. Now, apparently, they would then team up to fight Ultra Humanite and some Brainiac bots. But then they would see Brainiac's ship coming down to Earth, who was trying to destroy them. However, Martha Kent dies by pushing Clark out of the way, and she would find out her son, quote unquote, is Superman, and she dies. Now, some of you are going to be asking me, am I forgetting about Jor-El? Yeah, he would be in the first movie, and also become Clark's mourning figure when Martha dies. Russell Crowe could have still played Jor-El. Brainiac, of course, would then get away after capturing Lois Lane and losing a fight against Lex Luthor with Brainiac-powered armor. In the end, Clark decides that he needs a sidekick, and that is Kara, his cousin, thanks to the words of his father. And then, of course, they take down a lot of the Brainiac bots, and then the final battle between Superman, Lex, Brainiac, and Lex begins. They take down Lex. Superman manages to defeat Lex, but Kara's having a hard time to defeat Brainiac. It would even be revealed that Brainiac was responsible for the destruction of the Kryptonians, like in the DCAU and some other continuities. And then Superman and Kara form a plan to stop Brainiac. Essentially, Kara would also not only save Lois, but also Jimmy Olsen. And then, once they're out, they destroy Brainiac. Somehow by destroying like his AI system, which causes him to blow up, and the ship he's on to blow up. And rubble and debris start coming down onto Metropolis. And of course, the ship comes crumbling down into the water. Superman and Kara would be hailed as heroes. And Supergirl and Jimmy's relationship would also be set up here. And then the movie would end with reports of Superman and Kara being hailed as heroes. And Lex Luthor would, of course, be reading all of this. And then he gets mad and destroys the newspapers by saying, "One day, Superman, you will face a challenge you won't see coming." And that is meant to set up the next movie, Superman 3, which would be later called Superman the Kryptonian General, released 5 years later. And yes, as the title suggests, Zod would be the main villain. The beginning of the film, which shows Superman and Supergirl taking down Metallo, and it's pretty easy. Because with Lex in jail, Metallo's just like his doing his own thing. But then they face off against a new threat named Lobo, who I think could have still been played by Jason Momoa or maybe someone else like Keanu Reeves or Roman Reigns. The fight is intense and Lobo beats them. And Clark, of course, would tell about Jor-El that he suffered a second defeat, and Jor-El tells his son that that will always happen. And then, of course, Clark has a way in which he's going to use to propose to Lois, and Kara and Jimmy are now starting to form a relationship. They're beginning to date now, as it would be mentioned in the prologue, the beginning. And there would be a scene with them dating before, Clark comes in and tells them about him proposing to Lois. Now, yes, the Jock and Perry White would return in Superman 2, and they would also return here. And Clark could tell Perry about him marrying Lois, and Jimmy telling Perry about him now having a girlfriend, and Perry would be amazed, astonished. Then Lobo would come to the villain of this movie, General Zod, who I think could have still been played by Michael Shannon. But I could also see someone like Digimon Hunsier as Zod. But I think Michael Shannon was perfect. Ursa Na would also appear. I think I could pretty much give them the same actors they had in Man of Steel. And of course, we reveal that Lobo was hired by Zod to take down Superman, but he failed to bring him. When Clark is in his spare time, he meets a teenager named John Henry Irons, who I think could have been played by Caleb McGaughlin, or even John Boyega, who is an avid Superman fanboy and wants to be a hero like him. And so Clark decides to take him in to train him to become a hero like him. Rather than being Superboy, he decides to take up his own name, Steel. Yeah, for comic accuracy. As for Superman telling this to Jor-El, he would, but then Superman, Supergirl, and Steel would fight Zod, Ursa, and Non, but they both lose, and this causes Lobo to appear, and Steel manages to defeat Lobo, but Superman, Supergirl, and Steel just get back, trying to figure out, since they both have suffered their loss against Zod, who is now capturing many innocent people, as he plans on using the Black Zero event to destroy Metropolis. Clark would even tell about Zod to Jor-El, and Jor-El would even have been established to know who Zod is, like a Man of Steel, and there would be flashbacks detailing Zod's backstory, and how he wanted to annihilate several races and people, and that Superman needs to stop him, along with his sidekicks. In the climax, Superman and Zod would fight, but this ends up with Lois being captured by Lobo, and Superman getting knocked out by Zod. And then the Black Zero event happens. Sam Lane would use a lot of the military to destroy the Black Zero event, but it's proved to be indestructible. And then Sam Lane, along with some military officers, die. After seeing the destruction, Clark decides to muster up all of his courage, and then he, Kara, and John decide to take the final battle. And the final battle would be almost identical to Man of Steel. But Superman would not kill Zod. Instead, have the final battle take place on the Black Zero event. Lobo would destroy the controls, and this caused a black hole to appear in the sky, which sucks the Black Zero event. And apparently, once it's sucked into the black hole, Zod, Ursa, and Non are also sucked in. It would be assumed that Superman, Supergirl, Steel, Lois, and who else? Oh yeah, Lobo got sucked in. But they turn out okay. Lobo is arrested and put in jail. Clark proposes to Lois. They kiss. We then cut to a few months later. A wedding ensues. And then, years later, John Kent II is born. Because it's revealed that Superman, Clark, was telling the story of his adventures as Superman to his and Lois's son. Kara and Jimmy also would appear, and they have children too. One who has Kara's looks, and that's their son, but their daughter would have Jimmy's looks. As for John, I could see him being played by Ian Armitage, Kara and Jimmy's son, Jacob Tremblay. As for Jimmy and Kara's daughter, Emma Tremblay, since she is Jacob Tremblay's real life sister. And of course, John would find his father's old suit. And then Clark would tell his son, "You're going to have to wait until you're old enough to become a hero like me." And then, of course, they laugh it off. And yes, Kara and Jimmy and their kids would be visiting the Kents. And then we see an image of Jor-El. Well, at least a statue. Being made by steel. And then, of course, we hear the words of Jor-El from the 1978 film, like, when he first met Superman, like that. Yeah, those are the words he would say. Those also would have been the words he would have said to his son in the first movie, So it would all come full circle. And then in 2025, there would be a Supergirl spinoff, which would take place before the first movie with Atomic Skull as the villain, or at least someone like Mongol. And then there would be a sequel, which takes place in between Superman 2 and the Kryptonian General. So that's why DreamWorks made a Superman movie. Anyways, before I go, a lot of you are asking me, did I forget about Lex Luthor and Superman, the Kryptonian General? Yeah, he would have been a cameo character, appearing in a few scenes here and there. And Brainiac would have been mentioned in the Supergirl movies, so yeah, that's all I have to say. Anyways, bye.